The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
Checking in for a live look at Bitcoin, the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently trading at $47,163. Bitcoin is up almost 6% over the past 24 hours, and the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is trading at 32.32. ETH also soaring almost 8% for the day. And the new DFX, CoinDesk's DeFi index, is trading at $701. DeFi also taking off over 9%. And just because we mention it, look at that massive green candle for Cardano, up over 20% over the past 24 hours, now trading at $2.51. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is FTX US President Brett Harrison. Hi there, Brett. Thanks for joining us. So, off the bat, what's your outlook? Great to have you. What's your outlook on Bitcoin amid these huge green candles I'm seeing everywhere?
You know, as was said, it seems like the market is not too fearful of what's going on with the bill that's going through now, that the House. I think what we're seeing between the various broad consensus that we've seen on the Senate floor to what's the commentary coming out of the Treasury, that we now see broad understanding that there are multiple different kinds of actors in the crypto industry. There's not just exchanges, there's proof of work validators, there are software providers, and not all of these are going to end up meeting the definition of broker, even according to the Treasury, most likely. And so we think that it's a positive sign that it looks like the correct actors are going to be most responsible for doing things like tax reporting, and that is a positive development for the industry.
So Brett, have you noticed any pops, any changes in the mix of currencies that are being traded right now on FTX US? And is there any difference between what's going on in terms of volume, not size, but mix in the US compared to what's happening at FTX.com as a whole?
Yeah, on FTX US, we continue to see obviously strong volume in Bitcoin and Ethereum. We're also seeing continued and growing interest in Solana. A lot of DeFi apps coming out using Solana as an infrastructure. FTX itself being, a pretty big supporter of Solana. A lot of heat right now in the NFT craze, with a couple of NFT drops happening on Solana. So we're definitely seeing increasing volume there as well.
So last time we had Sam on our show, he was talking about how the U.S. is a real priority for FTX as kind of the next big geographical market. So could you tell us a little bit about the U.S. plan? Are you planning to focus more on retail investors or institutional investors? And also, how do you set yourselves apart from some of the big players in the U.S., like obviously Coinbase or Kraken?
Absolutely. So we have a couple of big strategic initiatives for FTX US. The first is absolutely to really go after that retail user base. We have this incredible platform that has been primarily used by institutions, your biggest trading firms, and we have close to 100% uptime. We have low fees. We have a great product, and now it's just about getting our names out there, and which is a big part of why we're doing a lot of these big partnerships. When you compare ourselves to someone like Coinbase, if you go on the Coinbase app and buy $100 worth of Bitcoin, you're going to end up with around $96 and change worth of Bitcoin after fees and charges of various kinds. On the FTX app, you'll get around $99.50 worth of Bitcoin after similar charges. And so you're paying close to 7 times the fees on Coinbase. And we think that's really going to affect retail over time as they become more sensitive to things like fees. But in addition to the retail space, we're also looking into other kinds of regulated markets in the US, for example, stocks and derivatives, and hoping to offer a wider array of asset classes on our platform, more for traditional investors in addition to the crypto crowd.
So, Brett, is FTX.com going to implement the kind of KYC, know your customer procedures in place that FTX US has, which is pretty standard? Do you think that FTX.com will come up to your standards, or are you going to have this bifurcated level of KYC, one for US, one for overseas?
We actually implement the complete same standard across FTX US and on FTX International. we go above and beyond what's required in both cases. It's very important to us to make sure that people who are entering the platform, first of all, we know who they are. We know they're not entering the platform from a prohibited jurisdiction. We know that they are able to verify their identity. We do various anti-money laundering checks against them. And so we held ourselves to the highest possible standard across both platforms. There's actually very little to no difference between the KYC process between FTX International and FTX US.
Mm-hmm. I also saw most recently, and you talked about this, the FTX struck a long-term investment spokesman deal with Kevin O'Leary. Before that, you've also struck deals with Tom Brady, Gisele Bündchen, Major League Baseball, and the naming rights to the Miami Heat arena, which is now FTX Arena. So maybe you could talk about this latest partnership with Kevin O'Leary. What's the strategy behind these moves? And O'Leary himself is focused on green mining. So I'm wondering if FTX will only deal in green Bitcoin.
So we met with Kevin O'Leary down in Miami during the Bitcoin conference. He was looking to really get into crypto investing more and more. He was looking for a platform that he can trust, not just from a technological and reputational perspective, but also from a compliance perspective. And after that meeting, he realized that FTX would be a perfect fit for his objectives. And he's just a great spokesman. He has a huge following, a huge presence, whether it be through not just on television, but in general with institutional investors who really trust and look to him for advice. And so it seemed like it was a really great partnership. On the green front, FTX and FTX US are incredibly dedicated towards making sure that we are responsible actors in this industry when it comes to things like electricity usage, energy usage, and have launched a number of different campaigns in terms of purchasing carbon credits and other things to offset energy usage for FTX.
So as we were discussing earlier, there's definitely a lot of regulatory uncertainty in the United States, partly the infrastructure bill, but there are other potential threats on the horizon. From your perspective, what are your greatest regulatory concerns in the US? Like, what are some things to watch out for that could affect FTX's business?
So the biggest thing affecting any US exchange right now is the question of what tokens one can list on the platform. As you may know, if you want to offer securities to investors, one, you have to be a registered securities exchange, and two, the securities themselves have to be registered securities. You can't offer unregistered securities to unaccredited investors. Now, the question is, of course, which ones of these actual spot tokens really represent securities and which ones don't? And moreover, who has the jurisdiction and what jurisdiction to decide what exactly is a security and what isn't? And so one thing that we're seeing, comments out of Gensler and the conversations between Gensler and Senator Warren, and the bill that's entering the House now, is showing us that there is definitely going to be decisions on the horizon in terms of which agency exactly has jurisdiction over these spot tokens.
So Brett, speaking of jurisdiction, your competitor, one of the competitors of FTX is of course Binance. We talked to Brian Brooks several times about the topic of servers. So it seems he left Binance in part because of when it came to transferring those servers to the US, there might have been some objection. Now, FTX, obviously, different company, but nonetheless, there's a similarity in that the FTX.com is based overseas, you're based in the US. Are your servers in the US as well, or are they overseas? How does that work? And are you, if they're not in the US, are you going to bring them into the US?
Yeah, FTX US is run entirely in the US. It's run using US staff, US servers in a US Amazon cloud. So FTX US is already completely run inside of the US. As a separate business than FTX.com. Now, of course, we're affiliates. There's some shared technology, but we are as separate of a business as we can be, especially in terms of server footprint and staff.
All right. And I noticed, Brett, you're a former Citadel securities executive. Were you doing any work in crypto during your time there? How is that experience related to what you're doing now?
No, it wasn't involved in crypto at all. Citadel Securities wasn't involved in the crypto space at all, at least when I was there. In fact, I'm pretty new to crypto. My only major experience with crypto was from some of my last days at Jane Street when they were starting to get into the space from the trading side. It was also around the time that Sam had left Jane Street to start Alameda. We had overlapped for a couple of years at Jane Street. And so while I had kept a watchful eye on the crypto industry before joining FTX US, FTX US is my first official career-based foray into the crypto world.